end of support. We spoke about that, I think, 2 months ago, and today we're going to be diving deeper into SQL Server 2012 and why you should probably move, and noting that its end of support date is July 12th, 2022. That's this year, actually, in 2-3 months. What are your options and what you should do? Let's jump right in. The year is 2012. Katniss Everdeen is about to volunteer as tribute. The Titans are about to get wrathful. Django is about to become unchained. And on April 1st of all days, Microsoft decides to announce the general availability of SQL Server 2012. Okay, so wait, did we all decide to collectively forget that there was this whole world is ending in 2012 thing, and they made a whole movie about it in 2009, and we are all still kind of here? Or maybe the world ended and we all got plugged into the Matrix and then we just forgot, and now we are waiting for Keanu Reeves to wear glasses and believe, and then we might get our freedom. I'm still not sure, like, that's how the Matrix ends. And so on that April 1st, Microsoft announced the general availability of SQL 2012, and big data had just become a thing. You know, this is 10 years ago. Big data was slowly blooming and business intelligence was becoming a core part of the data conversation. What SQL 2012 was poised to deliver was better processing of data using in-memory transactions, and even better yet, big data processing with third-party integrations like Hadoop, and it did that really, really well. But as we know, the story of software is not bound to just one big release. There are always going to be updates. And so 2 years later, Microsoft released SQL Server 2014. SQL Server 2014 went deeper into the business intelligence conversation. In fact, if anything, it actually allowed you to integrate with Power BI, which had just been recently launched. And that means you could actually go in and analyze your data better and faster. I won't dive into all the features we get with all these new releases, but I'll try and focus on the ones that I think were impressive. So let's jump from 2014 over to 2016. SQL Server 2016 provided mission-critical performance, and even better yet, always-on encryption. This means your data was encrypted when it was being written, when it was being read, and even applications that were requesting that data needed to have a decryption key. And that meant your data was very, very secure. And this is on top of other features like Polybase, which basically allowed you to integrate, or let me say virtualize, a layer of your database that allows you to pull and connect with other databases like Oracle or Teradata, which made it easier for your SQL Server to process data just before it was taken to a business intelligence solution, which was actually pretty impressive. Then came SQL Server 2017, and I loved SQL Server 2017 for just one key reason. SQL Server 2017 could run on Linux. And so this deepened Microsoft's relationship and commitment to open source by taking this big core piece of software that had, and actually still is, a huge part of Microsoft's bread and butter, and allowing that piece of software to run on Linux and also in containers. And this meant that companies that were open source first could now go in and try the technology. They could actually build on it and mess around with it, which, as you know, I love when people can go in and experiment with software and actually build stuff on it. And after 2017 came 2019. 2019 was released in the era of GDPR, and I don't know how many of you remember that, but Europe passed laws around privacy and basically ensuring that EU citizens, and at that time it was bound purely to the EU, were able to go in and ask software providers, or basically anyone with their information, to view, edit, delete, and export their personal data. That's a very simple overview of GDPR, and if you're interested, I'd recommend do go check it out, because at this point, you do have to be GDPR compliant if your data is touching EU citizens. Of course, these data regulations spread across the globe, and now every region has a variation of it. And this was critical because remember, if you're storing your data on a database, you need to find a way to make sure that you can easily classify your data. And guess what? SQL Server 2019 did just that. It actually allowed you to go in and classify the data, easily pinpointing what was private data that, a user could ask to view, edit, delete, or export. And so all the way from the data layer, as a database admin, you're actually able to go in and do that. But wait for it, SQL Server 2019 isn't just the latest version. There is now SQL Server 2022 that should be going generally available, or should be GA, sometime this year. And what does SQL Server 2022 bring to the table? Number one is high availability and bi-directional disaster recovery, meaning you can link it directly to the cloud and have the cloud be your backup. And that way, in case anything happens to your servers, you just literally pull it in from the cloud with minimal configuration, which is always a good thing. Number two, and I think this is pretty amazing, it actually has blockchain-like features which allow you to have a cryptographic hash. And don't worry about the details. If you're technical, please do go check this out. But it basically allows you to have proof that the data that you have in your database wasn't tampered with. It literally gives you tamper evidence, and you're actually able to go in and show your auditors that, hey, this is the data we have, and I can prove at the database level that this data hasn't been tampered with. And that's really cool. It's currently in private preview, and if you're interested in checking out some of those features and more, please do go and check it out. And please, I have to mention, I am barely scratching the surface of all the new features that came in with every new version. And every new version maintained the features from every previous one. And so when we look at something like SQL Server 2019 or 2022, you have over 10 years of feature difference between the latest and what was available in 2012. And so if that isn't reason enough to move from 2012, wow. Another key thing I should mention is that all these features are available in the cloud, meaning you can actually go and host a lot of this in Azure directly. And so you have a lot of choice when it comes to moving away or stepping away from SQL Server 2012. My option is move to the latest and greatest. Let's say you are happy to move off SQL Server 2012 and into something newer. You have two options. Number one is move to the cloud. And this is a big one. I love this because the cloud gives you two options. You could run the servers within virtual machines, which is good. And that's amazing, especially if you're more comfortable with that. But number two is you could run your database as platform as a service, which gives you a lot more features. And here's the best thing. You can bring your license, your existing license, to the cloud, and that allows you to pay less. And I think that's pretty amazing. So if you haven't considered the cloud path, please do check it out, and also check out what we call the Azure Hybrid Benefit, which allows you to bring your own license to the cloud. But let's say you can't move to the cloud, or for regulatory reasons, the data has to stay in country or in your own data center. Well, guess what? You can still upgrade in place, move from SQL 2012 to 2019, or if you're willing to wait for it, 2022, and actually use those new features. But not everybody may have the choice of moving off of SQL Server 2012. So what do you do then? Well, again, remember, this product is coming to end of support. So your choices aren't many. You have two key ones. Number one is take your existing SQL Server 2012 instance and move it to Azure. And what happens there is you're going to get 3 years of security updates for free. which ensures it's going to buy you enough time to move off of SQL Server 2012. But if you choose to stay with it on your local data center, you'll actually have to pay for those security updates if you are eligible and you meet some software assurance requirements. And so as you can see, the best possible path is to move and upgrade. Move to the latest, move to the greatest. Secure your data, make sure you're compliant, and ensure that you are always secure. And most of all, lots of pretty cool features, right? I mean, they're amazing. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you now have an idea of why you should move off of SQL Server 2012 and what options there are beyond it. Because I think you have a bouquet of choices and you just have to pick one and make sure that it works for you. And as always, I hope you've learned something and stay awesome.